All right, so let me see if I can get David in here. Hi guys, thanks for joining. I'm just waiting for David to get on here. Let's see. How do I do this? All right. All right, yay. Okay, this should let me know. Hi, David, is it letting you in? Says it's waiting for you. Let's see. David, is it letting you connect? All right, that should work. Oh, says you've declined. Yeah. Yay.
All right, so I have to do that. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me all right?
All right, so I'll have to do this on my phone and not my computer, so I'll have to hold up my
Okay, we made it. We're just in time, it looks like. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's I don't know why Facebook is not letting us do that.
Huh. Turn this up. So
Yeah.
right. Doesn't seem
It
to want to
looks
get
like
my
a couple of people are joining in now. So guys, thanks for joining, and please comment with where you're joining from. We would love to know where you're viewing from. Yay, Wally's in too. Awesome. So yeah, guys, let us know where you're joining in from. Comment with a hashtag live if you're watching live. Comment with a hashtag replay if you're watching us on the replay. And tell us a bit about you. Have you had a lucid dream before? How often do you have lucid dreams? How many do you have a week? Let's see, there's a bunch of people joining. So David, have you had a look at the questions? Are there any that you really want to get started with?
Yeah, let's take a look at the questions. You know, somebody asked, what is the ultimate lucid dream technique?
Yeah, I saw that one.
You know, I don't think there really is an ultimate lucid dream technique. I think the ultimate technique is to really combine techniques. That's really the secret to having higher propensity of lucid dreams, is to get into the habit of using different techniques, like get into the habit of asking yourself, am I dreaming right now? And doing reality tests, and you know, the wake up to go back to sleep method, waking up and about 3 hours before you normally do. Going back to sleep with a more active mind increases the probability. Trying
Yeah.
some of these different herbs, talking about it like we're doing right now. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if a percentage of the people listening right now have a lucid dream tonight just because we're talking.
Right.
But all these different things combine, I think, to really help.
For sure. Yeah. Are there any techniques that you really love to use in particular, your like go-tos?
Yeah, the technique that I've found that really has worked for me the best has just been to get into the habit of asking myself, am I dreaming right now? You know, and
Mm,
flippantly respond to that by just saying, oh, of course I'm not dreaming, because the idea is to get into the habit of saying that so it carries over into your dreams.
right.
And when it carries over into your dreams, what you want to do is each time that you ask yourself that question, you take what's called a reality test. You try
Mm-hmm.
your closed nostrils, or you look at a piece of paper with something written on it, memorize what it says, look away and look back. If the words change, or if you can breathe through your closed nostrils, you're probably dreaming.
Yeah.
So those are good techniques to practice around once an hour. If you really get into the habit of doing that, you will be surprised. Usually within a couple of days, you'll find yourself asking those questions within a dream, and then being astonished to find that you're actually dreaming.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what have you found? What are some of the techniques that you've really found to work the best?
I really like just keeping a real solid track of my dream signs. So whenever I write dream journals, I'll go through and highlight all my dream signs. So I kind of break it down into 4 categories. So I highlight the characters, I highlight the emotions, I highlight the environments and any kind of objects that stand out. And then once you start doing that, you kind of notice different patterns. So like you'll notice that, hey, this random kid from my high school is always popping up this week, or like, hey, I keep having dreams around water, or all my dreams this week I've been like really angry, or certain things like that. So I'll highlight those, and then I find that that's the quickest way of like really inducing a lucid dream, to find the patterns that are coming up for you or for me, like that particular week, and really tuning into that in our waking state.
Yeah, no, I think I found it to be really effective too, to pay real good attention to your dreams and write down the dream signs. So yeah,
Yeah.
keeping a dream journal is really essential. That's one of the most important things we should really emphasize, not just for increasing the probability of lucid dreaming, but just to increase your dream recall in general. It's a great
Yeah.
technique. So
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it looks like a bunch of people have just joined in as well. So please, again, comment #live or #replay. Let us know where you're from. Let us know if you're an advanced lucid dreamer, a beginner, and feel free to, comment with any of your own answers to these questions too. It would be really cool for us to see what other people experience as well. Well, so that was a great question to start with, the ultimate induction technique, right?
yeah.
Dive right in. Yeah.
Yes.
The
Well,
other one,
why don't you pick out a question?
yeah, I was gonna say the other one that really stood out to me was this one. What is the highest good that lucid dreaming can be used for to benefit the world?
Gosh, wow. You want to start with that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it really depends on the individual. It kind of, when I read this, like I immediately thought of, the Michael Jackson, like Man in the Mirror lyrics of like, if you want to make the world a better place, you got to take a look at yourself and make a change, right? And I think that's why most people get into lucid dreaming in the first place, is because they want change in their life. Like they want something to happen, and whether it's like more of a personal thing or an outside thing, it's about like, how can I make a change in myself or in my dream state and integrate that back into the waking state. What did you think about when you read that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that, lucid dreaming is one of the primary benefits is being able to learn more about yourself and self-improvement. It's been used for thousands of years as a technique in Tibetan Buddhism as a way to help increase spiritual awareness, to prepare people for, the afterlife. So I think that, these techniques of improving yourself, anything you can do to make yourself a better person helps to improve the world. I think
Yeah.
it also increases a sense of just general expansion of consciousness, which makes people more aware in the waking world, pay people more attention to their environment. People become more environmentally aware. People become more compassionate and empathic, I think, as a result of practicing these techniques and lucid dreaming. So
Yeah,
I
for
think it
sure.
has many of the same, kind of benefits that people get from a psychedelic or a mystical experience, in the long run. And I think that's probably one of the things that benefits the world most right now. I mean, we're in a world with, rampant, pollution and ecological catastrophes right and left. And I mean, people really need to become more conscious. So becoming conscious in our dreams, I think, ways, and learning more about ourselves is one of the ways to help spread that out into the world and make the world a better place.
Yeah, totally agree. I think as well it like taps into that, connected consciousness or like universal consciousness almost. Like we can kind of explore things in this altered state where we make connections literally in our brain. Our brain is making connections that we can't in the waking state. The same with the psychedelic state, right? Like our brain is kind of talking to different
Right.
areas that we don't while we're awake, and that aids in us making new discoveries and thinking about things in a way that we usually can't. And there's so many people, friends, and famous examples of new ideas, new creations coming into existence, from lucid dreams.
Yeah. And people can tap into something larger, some kind of universal source, I think you were sort of getting at. I mean, for me, one of the most powerful things that I've been able to accomplish with lucid dreaming is to ignore the environment, to ignore all that fantasy fulfillment stuff, ignore flying and going underwater and all that stuff, and to try, and even ignoring, which for me was the most exciting thing for a while, was talking to the dream characters, even ignoring
Right.
that, and trying to create a dialogue with the dream itself, with the dreaming mind, the mind behind the dream, and communicating with your higher self, another part of your brain. Some people think it might be, divine intelligence or whatever it is. It's some kind of intelligence that knows more about you than you know yourself, and maybe even about the world than you know. So it seems like a way to tap into something larger. And I think tapping into this kind of source knowledge or this higher intelligence, or to be able to dialogue with the dreaming mind, is very similar to what people experience, say, with ayahuasca, or, when they tap into a higher intelligence. And I think being able to tap into that and dialogue with that, and being able to learn and grow from, your experience with conversing with that intelligence, I think is one of the best ways to also getting back to helping improve the world and making this wayward world a better place.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. I guess touching on that question made me think about this other one that we got about, meeting holy figures. Have you ever met God? Have you ever met the Buddha, or like these divine beings almost in a lucid dream? What's your experience with that one?
That's a great question. It's like, my first inclination when I read that question too was that, the dreaming mind that I talked to, that I just described, may be something like divine intelligence, or
Yeah.
like the goddess. But aside from that, I've had experiences with what I call encounters with the wise beings. Okay.
Mm,
Seems like all the different characters in our dreams fall into basic categories. Some are kind of like robotic and mechanical and puppet-like, and don't seem to have much, intention or consciousness. And
yeah.
then there are those characters that seem to have, intention and consciousness like us, and will do their best to convince you that
Yeah.
they're an independent mind with their own lives going on, and, and you're in their reality, and,
Yeah.
and of course you're not dreaming them into existence. So
Something
there's
you're
that.
in their dream, right? They're
Yeah,
like, no, this is my dream.
yeah, exactly. which is the opposite. So, but then there's this other category, which I've only rarely encountered, which I call the wise beings. And I've read about this and other people's encounters. And some people experience it as like luminous beings of light or angels or that sort of thing. In my personal experience, they've always been young children, like 4 or 5 children that just seem to be incredibly intelligent and incredibly wise and seem to know more about me than I know myself. It's been powerful experiences that I've had, but I've never actually had an experience with Jesus or Buddha or any of the traditional figures, but I certainly think it's possible.
Yeah, that's so funny that you mentioned the children, because that's one of my like major lucid dream signs is these kind of packs of these like really conscious children.
Right.
I wonder if that's like a common one for a lot of people. But yeah, they seem really pure and they have all this knowledge and they've got that kind of like God, Buddha essence about them, don't they?
Right, yeah. I've had so many experiences with children in that way in my dream. I just actually recently had an experience like that. Yeah, it's very powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to share your experience, or is it too private?
Gosh, well, the one that I just had recently was this. There was a little boy that I was talking to in the dream, and I said something like, you know, this is all a dream, and you're just me. He goes, and he looks at me. He goes, yes, I'm you. and I said something like, how do you know that you're me? He goes, because I've been you all along or something. And I just can't tell you, it doesn't sound that powerful relating it, but shivers were just like up and down my spine, sense of like, how is this little boy like saying these things? It was just extraordinary.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah. What kind of experiences have you had with wise beings or?
Yeah, so I experimented a little bit. I read about, I think there's a study on this actually, where people did a lucid dream study where they were asked to get lucid and call out to be shown like the divine or God or a Buddha or something like that. So I gave it a try. Obviously, it sounds really fun. And I was immediately transported to this location that I call the Universal Soup. And this is a place that I go to when I take mushrooms, when I take DMT. And it's very hard to describe what it is, but I guess in the best way I can describe it, it would be like just being zoomed out very far into the universe, where you can kind of witness and be a part of everything. So you can see all the planets, all the stars, all the kind of time warpy stuff. And I guess maybe that's what I perceive as like God or the universe. Maybe that's like my home base. And when I go there, I'm not me. I'm not a human. I don't have an ego or a memory of myself as this being, you know, doing my 9 to 5. I just feel part of this like universal soup. I feel like I'm in it, I'm breathing it. It's all kind of one thing, kind of like what you're saying about how that child said to you, like, I am you, I've always been you. That's really the feeling that I get in those experiences too. Yeah, it
sounds like you're describing almost what people describe as the void in dreams. That's sort of like in between dreams, or a space where there's no boundaries between you and anything. All the boundaries dissolve and you're in that unified space.
Yeah, that's another question we got too, right? Is like, what is dream yoga? What is the void? What does it look like? You know, what color is it? What do you do there? So yeah, what's your experience like of the void?
Well, my experience with the void has just been, it's just a clear, boundaryless kind of space. I remember in that question he asked if it's in black and white. I've never actually experienced a dream in black and white ever in my life. And I remember actually reading a statistic when I was younger that most people dream in black and white. And
Really?
I don't know if that's true, but I remember thinking about that a lot as a child.
Yeah.
And I have spoken to people that do dream in black and white. And I
Mm.
find it astonishing. I thought years ago it had to do with the fact that people had black and white television sets
Right.
sort of influence their dreaming. But some people apparently don't have the technicolor, glimmering, psychedelically colored dreams that I'm so familiar with. But I've never had a dream in black and white. What were some of the other parts to that question?
Yeah. What is the void, or how do you
I,
use it? What do you do to stabilize it?
yeah, had a stable. I'll talk about stabilization in a second. But he asked if you had a body in the void,
Oh
and
yeah.
yeah, in the void you don't have a body, but
Mm-hmm.
you don't have any distinction between you and anything else. But in a lucid dream, sorry, my face keeps twitching. It's fine. Um,
You're in
in,
the
in, in a lucid dream, of course, you do have a body just like physical reality. Only it's a lot more malleable. You can stretch your fingers. You can use it to go through walls. You can actually change bodies into another form and different things.
yeah.
But in the void that we were talking about before, it's something sort of almost beyond lucid dreaming or beyond dreaming. And in that state, there's no sense of having a body or being anything that distinguishes you from the environment around you.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's like a bunch of different styles of the void as well. Like I've experienced, as I was just saying, that kind of DMT one where you don't have a body and it's not really as much about like human life at all, and it's more, like an energy thing and more of like an emotional kind of experience. And then I've also had other times that I guess would categorize as the void, where it seems more like this, it's just this white space. And
Yeah.
then that question made me think about that, where it's like, it's not a room. It's very much like that kind of, you sometimes see it in TV shows where it's like that, no walls, it's just whiteness. But I do have a body there, and there's nothing there. It's just you in this kind of blank space, and you're there as a human, but you're not, there's nothing else there. You're just there with yourself.
Yeah, so the state that you're describing, it's what a lot of people think is kind of a goal for spiritual practices. What do you think it can be utilized for? Why do you think it's a valuable state?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in those states, my go-to is just to tune in and meditate, and that's kind of my experience with that. Or also asking questions, like speaking to the dream, kind of like you said about how, yes, sometimes the goal is not always like characters or this other thing, but more like connecting with your higher self and asking things. But it's sometimes hard to know like what to ask. How do you talk to yourself in those spaces, right?
Yeah, it's good to be prepared and have the questions ahead of time. It's
Yeah.
everything. What I plan to do in a lucid dream, I usually
Yeah.
have spelled out well beforehand. So it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm a lucid dream. What was the next thing on my list? So I'm already
Yeah.
work on that.
Yeah.
The person also asked about stabilization technique, and can be a problem for people when they get so excited in a lucid dream. Their heart starts racing and they physically wake up because their adrenaline starts going, and oh my god, I'm in a lucid dream, and next thing they know they're back lying in their bed. First thing to do is, of course, stay calm and to try to breathe a nice even way. One of the techniques that I found especially helpful, I learned from Stephen LaBerge, is stretch your arms out and close your eyes and to spin around like a whirling dervish. And
Wow.
there's something about that kinesthetic movement in the dream, spinning your body around with your eyes closed, that helps you to stay asleep and helps you to maintain the dream state. So if you find yourself starting to wake up, and usually it happens kind of in stages, you see the dream start to kind of fade a little bit, and you kind of feel the dual consciousness between your bed and the dreaming reality. Is just to keep that spinning around and to not stare at anything, for any length of time. Keep your eye movements, your visual field constantly moving around and looking. That's another way to help stabilize the
Yeah, I like that. I like the arm stretching and the spinning technique. I use my stabilization technique from kind of a combination of what Claire Johnson teaches as the Claire technique, it's her name.
Yeah.
But yeah, the first one, the C, is for calm. And then the L is for looking. And that's when I'll kind of like do my reality checks or whatever one I'm doing. And yeah, that eye movement. And then the E is like where I really stabilize, which is for engagement. So you just start engaging with the dream space, like start touching everything, touch the walls, touch anything around. And then the A is for an action. So you either kind of speak out what your lucid dream task is, or do something, where I guess that kind of comes into the movement stuff too. And then the R is for recall. So you recall what your lucid dream task was that hopefully you set in advance, and then you're kind of ready to go. Usually the dream is really stable by then. But I've also heard of people literally asking the dream to do what they want. So just as simple as saying like, be more clear right now, or you know, stabilize, or whatever it is that you're feeling, or like stop being blurry or stop moving, and kind of commanding the dream. That really works well for some people as well.
Right. Also getting into the habit of meditating and help to increase your staying stable in a lucid dream, your meditative, and also increasing the probability of having a lucid dream as well. So let's see, what else did I wanted to...
I thought it would be interesting to go into the question linked from this one. I guess we're talking about stabilizing the dream and doing it. Had kind of funny question come in, which is, you know, the standard, I want to get lucid, I want to have a lucid dream, but I'm really lazy. So, you know, is there an easier way?
Yeah, you know, what about that? You know, lucid dreaming does require some degree of, unless you're incredibly gifted and you have them spontaneously, it does require some degree of practice and, you know, discipline. You can do it more or less depending on how much time and effort you want to put into it. You know, the techniques that I described earlier, getting into the habit of asking yourself, am I dreaming right now, or these different things, they are fairly time consuming, and you do have to devote a certain amount of time to it. And like I said, the best way is to combine techniques. So there really isn't a super lazy way that I could think of. Maybe you know the way. But I did discuss in my book, I have a whole chapter on nutritional supplements and herb things. And for some people, that's enough. Just taking, you know, some of these herbs like velvet bean or Calea zakatiki, or for galantamine works without any kind of technique or practice, just simply taking galantamine, which is available on Amazon. It's a cognitive enhancer, and some people find taking that before bed almost guarantees a lucid dream. So, you know, some people can do it that way, and if you're lucky, they happen. But really, I think it requires a certain degree of discipline and, you know, practicing these techniques if you really want to get good at it and have them happen frequently.
Totally. Yeah, I would agree. I think it's really, you know, it's not a lazy man's game. I don't think. I think I often, you know, compare it to a sport, and in the same way as a sport, like, you know, you can be handed a tennis bat and a ball and go on a tennis court, and you're not going to be any kind of Serena Williams on day one, right? You might like hit the ball a few times, but you're not going to be a tennis champ. But if you're going out there every single day and doing the training, like, you will improve quickly. And there's definitely, you know, people who, they, you know, like you were saying earlier, like just from watching this video, just from tuning in, just from like setting that kind of information for yourself and talking about it, and setting those intentions, a lot of us will probably get lucid tonight. I'm sure me and you will. That always happens, you know, when you talk about lucid dreams. That's a huge trigger.
I think that's a great analogy. I'm sorry. I think that's a great analogy, what you just said about practicing a sport. that it's more like practicing an athletic sport than it is, say, like learning to ride a bicycle or something. It's not like you just learn and you know how to do. It's something you keep practicing, because even if you get good at it, if you stop practicing the techniques, they'll start to fade. So it's something you have to kind of keep up at and really keep putting work into, if you want to keep lucid dreaming.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then, I mean, there are supplements, as you were saying, like galantamine, and I love Cloudy Dream Pro, which it really puzzles me, because I think Cloudy Dream Pro, it's like mostly just natural herbs, like different flowers and stuff. And I think it has 5-HTP or choline in it, which I know has some effect. But the first time I took Cloudy Dream Pro, I had like 6 lucid dreams that night, which was the most I've ever had in my life. So I was just like, whoa, this stuff is really strong. But then I don't know, maybe that's also to do with placebo effect, and that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, well, placebo effects do play an important role. When I was researching different technologies for my book, Dreaming Wide Awake, I tried one of these light and sound dream induction machines. They're these like goggles that you wear that detect when you go into REM sleep, and they start flashing a light. And the idea is like it's incorporated into your dream, not enough to wake you up, but enough to help trigger the memory that you're dreaming. And the first night that I put this thing on, I had so many lucid dreams that night. I must have had just one lucid dream after another. And I woke up in the morning saying, wow, this thing works great, da, da, da. And then I checked the machine, and I actually put the battery in backwards. So it actually never went off the entire night. And it's just wearing this thing that actually triggered the belief. So the placebo effect is really powerful. And, like we mentioned, just talking about this with your friends, getting in the habit of talking about it a lot is one of the things that really does trigger lucid dreaming. If you expect to have one, there's a much greater probability of having one.
Definitely. Yeah. It would be cool to see what other people have tried as well. Like, tell us in the comments, let us know whether you're watching live or whether you're watching the replay. Comment with what you use, like what you find is the easiest way to get lucid, or any tips and tricks that have worked for you guys. It's always great to share and like find out new ones as well, I think.
Yeah. So somebody mentioned in the questions that they just have trouble with dream recall in general. And maybe we can talk a little bit about that, because
let's dive into that, because that's obviously a huge one. If you can't remember any dreams in the first place, like how are you going to even start this work, right?
Right. So that's really important. So I mean, of course, as you know, the most important thing is to get into the habit of keeping a dream journal and writing your dreams down. And I mean, the moment you get up to write down everything you remember, if you don't remember anything, write down how you feel, and you'd be surprised. The more you get into the habit of doing this, the more you start remembering your dreams, the more attention that you pay to your dreams, the more likely you are to recall them. And there are, some of the herbs that we mentioned earlier do help with dream recall as well. Vitamin B6 is supposed to help with dream recall quite a bit. And Kalia zakatiki, the Mexican dream herb, and Silene capensis, the African dream herb, have also been shown to increase dream recall. But really, the most important thing, I think, is just really starting to pay attention to your dreams, writing them down, recording them, talking about them the moment you get up, and you'll find that the more attention you pay to them, the more attention they pay to you.
Yeah. It's so interesting, isn't it, how it works like that? I'm exactly the same. I always make sure I write stuff down, and by writing stuff down, I have like multiple ways of dream journaling, and I really recommend for people who are struggling with remembering their dreams is to use a voice recorder or to just type in your phone. Those are much easier than having to wake up and grab a pen, grab a paper, and try and writing is really slow. I definitely, I have both routines. I use the my phone or voice recorder in the morning, and then as my nighttime routine, while I'm preparing for like lucid dreams and stuff, I'll go through that morning's dreams and I will write them down pen to paper, which I think is great. I think you should definitely have a pen and paper journal. But if you're struggling in the morning, like utilize technology, you know,
Right,
make it
right.
easier for yourself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That is really important. You have an audio recorder next to the bed, and because you're
Mm-hmm.
not going to want to write these things down. But yeah,
Yeah.
it is important though to actually transcribe them, and
Yeah.
you can because, like as you said earlier, looking for dream signs, you know, and just be able to review the progress of your lucid dreaming. It's much easier to see it when it's written out than it is to try to go through an audio tape and hear it all. But yeah, in the middle of the night when you wake up, it's sometimes very hard to turn the light on and get it together to write the dream down.
Yeah.
I mean, I've struggled, because over the years I go into periods where I write a lot of my dreams down, and it's a real struggle. Should I wake up and write the dream down? It was so cool, or should I go back to sleep? I can really
It
use
lures
this.
you in, doesn't it? I sleep more, right? Yeah, that's why I like just the voice recorder, because you kind of get it out and you're not too awake. Jennifer is saying, hey Jennifer, she's saying getting into certain positions in bed also works for recall. Have you tried that?
I'm sorry to.
Getting into different positions in your bed can also help with recall.
I find that lying on my back, I think, is when I remember dreams the best, and I find that I have more lucid dreams too when I lie on my back. And I think
Yeah.
there was some scientific study that showed that people lucid dream more on one side than the other. I can't remember which it was. I think the right side. People tend to lucid dream, you know.
The other thing I love
Yeah.
doing, which is kind of alternative, and I don't know how many people do this, but using tarot cards. So like I'm a really visual person, and I have a bunch of tarot decks that have like a lot of different imagery on them. You know, you can get really colorful or like a lot of different kind of images.
Mm-hmm.
And if I really like black out, can't remember a dream, and I'm talking like I have my dream signs, as I was saying, like I'll go through those, I'll lay still, and I'll think about, who were the characters in the dream, like what was I feeling, where was I, did I remember seeing anything? I'll go through those things, and then if I'm still can't paste it together, sometimes looking at things that are really visual helps me. So I'll kind of look through like my tarot deck, and I'll see an image and then suddenly get this like flashback of the whole dream. It's so weird.
That's wild. I haven't heard about that technique before. That's really
Yeah.
maybe we should mention a little bit about nightmares. Some people have problems with nightmares. We talked a little bit before about how to sustain lucid dreams.
Yeah.
But there are some people that actually don't want to sustain them. There are some people that are having a terrifying experience and they want to wake up from it. So we should talk a little bit about that. First of all, about what people should do if they are encountering, nightmarish or terrifying or threatening figures repeatedly in their dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen LaBerge, for example, recommends that people when they encounter these figures in a lucid dream, to confront them and ask them why they're threatening them, and to try to show love and affection and hug them and see if there's some kind of reconciliation that can happen as a result of the union between you and the threatening dream character.
Yeah.
I was really surprised when I was writing Dreaming Wide Awake, that a number of people said, how can I wake up from a lucid dream if it gets too scary? And I was like, well, you could try these other techniques. Well, like, what if they don't work and I really want to just wake up from it? There is actually a way to do it that works almost every time. And that's simply holding your breath in the lucid dream. If you hold your breath in a lucid dream, that's one of the things that corresponds to your physical body, and you really are holding your breath, and usually that will jolt your body enough to wake up. So if hugging Freddy Krueger doesn't work, then you may want to try holding your breath and try it another time. But I'd be curious to know or hear what you think about how people should deal with nightmares and that sort of thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's nightmares, especially lucid nightmares, can be really unnerving, because we're lucid and we think we have control, and then we're in this nightmare situation, and you're basically battling your mind. You're battling these thoughts and feelings and emotions that you're possibly suppressing, or traumas that are resurfacing, and so it's definitely scary. And my Yeah, I totally agree with what you said about holding your breath. But if you're in a nightmare and you're lucid, I think it's like such a great opportunity to, yeah, do exactly that and engage.
Mm.
And I try and bring in humor. I just start laughing. I will
Mm.
make myself like start laughing. And I've done this multiple times. And when I start laughing or I start, enjoying it, it's almost like your brain clicks into that thing of like, oh, wait, this is a funny situation we're in, right? It's kind of the same thing as, the psychology behind if you start smiling, like you really start feeling happier.
Right.
Um, and I've noticed that when I start doing that, the dream will instantly start changing. The characters start changing. I have this weird thing where in nightmares, when I start laughing, and I think this comes from my childhood, is that these like evil beings or entities start turning into cartoon characters
Yeah.
or morphing into these things that are no longer scary or shrinking down and that kind of stuff. So
Right.
yeah.
What you're describing right now, that last thing you said, is what I learned to do as a teenager during my psychedelic experiences. When I first encountered monstrous, terrifying figures, I learned to turn them into cartoon caricatures and somehow making Mad Magazine versions of them in my mind and everything took away the fear. So I think
Yeah.
that's it's a very clever technique. Yeah.
Yeah, visualization for sure. Yeah, Jennifer just commented saying she closes her eyes and pictures her room and her body, and then that wakes her up as well. So that's a
Mm.
really useful technique to think of. It would be cool to see everyone else's. I'm sure people have developed all different kinds of techniques that work for them. So please
Yeah.
comment and share yours as well. We want to hear them.
Of course, if you use the technique to wake up, it's important to make sure that you really woke up, because there's the possibility of having a false awakening where
Oh my God.
you, you,
Yeah.
you think you're waking up and it seems like you're in bed, getting up and looking around at your room, but oftentimes, sometimes at least, you're actually still dreaming. So
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
take a reality test right when you get up and check and see.
For sure. And that's not only with nightmares, right? Like I pretty much do that every single morning as best as I can now, because especially with lucid dreams, like for some reason my brain is doing this thing at the moment where I have a lucid dream and I go into that false awakening state of like waking up and being like, yes, I had the epic lucid dream, or I found some new information or whatever, and I start writing it down and I'm in a false awakening, and it's almost like it's erasing my memory of it because I feel like I'm writing it down. I'm like, it's good, I got it down, and I'm just in another dream. So now I really try and dedicate my reality test practice to, as soon as I wake up, I check, am I really awake yet? Is this a false awakening? I'm really playing this game with myself recently.
Right. Yeah, no, that's wonderful.
Yeah, Molly's saying as well. She said, every time I have a false awakening or four. Yeah, that's exactly what it feels like. It's this inception of false awakenings. It
Right.
can kind of drive you crazy.
Right. I just say so. Another question that I think a couple of people actually answered was, or asked was, whether you could have a psychedelic experience in a lucid dream. And
Yeah.
that was actually what got me interested in writing my book, Dreaming Wide Awake, was the
Mm-hmm.
similarities between lucid dreaming and psychedelic experiences. When I interviewed Terrence McKenna years ago, he told me that he used to smoke DMT in the dream and have full-blown experiences. And since then, numerous people, when I was writing my book, reported doing psychedelics in a lucid dream. Somebody asked if you haven't ever done a psychedelic in waking reality, if you do a psychedelic in the dream, if you'll actually have a psychedelic experience. And I thought that was a fascinating question.
Yeah.
Two people that I interviewed when I was doing Dreaming Wide Awake told me that they had done LSD in a dream prior to having actually ever done it in physical reality, and the
Mm-hmm.
experiences were remarkably similar. So
Yeah.
so there does seem like there is the possibility of having a psychedelic experience in a lucid dream. whether or not you've even ever done a psychedelic in waking reality. And, in a lot of ways, a lucid dream is like a psychedelic experience.
Yeah.
I mean, your senses are tremendously heightened. The role that your mind plays in influencing reality is very much heightened. There's, synchronicities are happening right and left in a lucid dream. So, I mean, there's an incredible amount of similarities, I think. And
yeah, I
yeah.
personally, I love using psychedelics in the lucid dream state, because as well as being able to experience that psychedelic state, you also have this like different control over it, right? Where I don't know if you've experienced this yourself, but like you can be on the psychedelic and having the experience, and then you can almost be like, okay, stop now, and it just stops.
Yeah.
And it's like you
Right.
can't do that in the waking state, right? Like once you've taken a
Right.
psychedelic, you're in for maybe,
Right.
6 to 12 hours even. So I think it's a really interesting thing to explore, maybe even for those people who either have never taken a psychedelic before or want to delve into that like psychedelic experience and that mindset, but they don't have, 6 to 12 hours coming up that they can have spare, or they don't have time off work. And it was interesting what you said as well about it being that new experience of the drug without ever having taken it. And I also have interviewed a couple of people like that as well, who have their mind created the experience, I guess, for what they imagined it would be like. And I've also spoken to a couple of people who have, one example is a friend who she had taken LSD in her waking state and had a terrible experience. She really hated it. It was just, bad trip.
Yeah.
And then she took LSD in her dream state, and she had this incredible, like beautiful experience, like the experience that she had kind of anticipated to have in the waking state. So that was really interesting as well.
Right. What else haven't we answered here? Somebody asked about the movie Inception.
Yeah.
About whether that was an accurate portrayal of what's actually possible.
Yeah.
I just in terms of that, I wanted to just mention Stanley Krippner's research with telepathy and dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, the idea behind the movie Inception is people can actually not only lucid dream on command, but being able to enter into other people's dreams and share dreaming and that sort of thing. And I have a section in my book on shared dreaming. There are many reports throughout history. People have been reporting this. There haven't really been any scientific studies done on it, but it's something that's reported quite frequently. And in the research that Stanley Krippner did back in the late 60s, early 70s, they were able to show, well, this is the way they ran the experiments. They had people in a sealed, soundproof room sleeping with EEG monitor hooked up to them. And somebody in another room at a designated time in the middle of the night was supposed to choose, one of 4 paintings was randomly chosen, and they were supposed to try to telepathically send that to the person sleeping. The person who was sleeping after this happened was then awoken and was asked to describe whatever they were dreaming. The dreams were then compiled in the morning, and a completely separate group of people looked at the dreams and looked at the paintings, the 4 possible paintings that could have been chosen for each of the different dream descriptions. And by chance, they'd get, if there were 4 of them, they'd get 1 out of 4 right. But they did much better than that. It was close to 50%. And why was this percentage so high? There's something going on that conventional science can't explain that seems to people can telepathically communicate or send information from one dream to another, or between the waking self and the dream. So whether or not people can really do what's possible in Inception, I'm not really sure, or maybe with future technologies, it might actually be possible. We're developing technologies now that allow us to lucid dream on command, for example, but there is interesting scientific evidence that we can share dreams and receive information telepathically in our dreams.
Definitely. I've seen so many, it's one of those things it's frustrating because there's not enough science on it and not enough, things that people will believe it. but it's one of those things where when you've had a subjective experience, then how can you not believe it? You know, I've had plenty of dreams, even with doing work with clients, and you know, where we're sharing our dreams regularly, and I would enter their dream or try and enter their dream to perform some kind of healing, and then we both have recorded the dreams, you know, and we were using voice recorders at the time, so you can see the times that we're recording them and waking up and going back to sleep, and the dream content is almost identical. And it's like, how do you explain that? How would you know that that's what they're dreaming about? It's nothing that we've talked about. And, you know, it almost had that feeling of like, I wake up and I'm like, okay, this is what I had in my lucid dream, and you feel nervous to share it because sometimes things can be inappropriate, or, you know, a bit like taboo to talk about the stuff that we don't usually talk about, and we're diving into our deep subconscious and unconscious, and you think like, well, this might just be my shit, like this might not be to do with them at all. But then when, you know, you report that and they send back their dream, and it's like you're in the same space, it's crazy. Yeah, I can't wait for this kind of research to be produced on mass level, because it would be so interesting to see. And it really seems like people are people tune into dream stuff at the same time too. Like I've noticed that, you know, groups of people start having similar dream content, or like one week everyone's dreaming about, you know, weddings or something, and the next week everyone's dreaming about theme parks, or these really random occurrences that I guess can't be so random. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I think there's some kind of a group mind that, you know, influences, and our minds are not as separate as they often appear to be. Gosh, you know, I can't remember the name of the project now, but somebody started a project where they had, you know, people from all over the world recording, or, you know, inputting what the basic subjects of their dreams were, and you can see around the world there were suddenly like ebbs and flows of certain subjects that everyone was dreaming about. So so there is something to this idea of a group mind, or the, you know, the interconnection between our minds, where we're, you know, not quite as separate as we like to think we are most of the time. You know?
It would be awesome to see more about that, or see other people's experiences of shared dreams. I know the last time we met up, you and Molly had just had a shared dream together as well, I remember.
Yeah, we've actually had a shared lucid dream together. I mean, that was,
really?
You know, that was truly extraordinary. We've had many shared dreams. I had my first shared dream when I was around 7 years old with my brother. Remember me and my brother waking up and describing how we had both had a dream where we were on a flying saucer with my grandmother, and she had birthday cake in her hair, and I mean, really strange kinds of, you know, idiosyncratic things that just that things that had nothing to do with what was going on in our life at the time. So I mean, it was you know, just really uncanny how this kind of thing could happen. But there's something to it. I mean, I'd love to see this explored more in the future. You know, I mentioned we're developing a technology at the Max Planck Institute in Germany. They're developing this technology that allows people to lucid dream on command by activating the prefrontal cortex while people are in REM sleep. And once they miniaturize and mass produce this technology, we'll all be able to lucid dream on command. And by doing that, we could then really set out to do experiments with shared dreaming and these types of things. And I mean, it seems like, you know, the sky is really the limit as to where this can go in the future.
For sure. Yeah, I've had a couple of weird shared dreams experiences. Just with friends, like when you've had sleepovers, I think we were like 14, 15, and there's a bunch of you sleeping in the same room. And I don't remember if I told you about it before, but I had this really weird one that stuck with me forever, because it was a shared dream with 3 of us. And that's usually, like, I haven't heard of many of those where it's multiple people. But I was having this dream that I was in this safari, and I had this old, like, digital, you know, not digital, sorry, like disposable cameras. And I was trying to use mine, and it wasn't working, which is typical of the dream space. And I suddenly woke up, and as I woke up, I looked to my right, my friend was there. And this was like in the middle of the night. My friend was sitting up, so I like looked at him like, what are you doing? And he just turned around, looked at me, and he went, "Don't worry, you can borrow my camera," and just lay back down and went to sleep. And I was like, what is going on? And I kind of thought about that, and I was like, well, it must just be a really weird coincidence. And then I went back to sleep, and in the morning, a different friend woke up and was saying about how they were having this really weird safari experience, and we hadn't watched anything about safaris. Like, we were living in central London, there was nothing to do with that around us. And that was, I think, my first like triple shared dream experience. It was so crazy.
Yeah, I've heard of, I haven't ever had that happen, but I've read about a few other people who had multiple people having shared dream experiences. And I've heard of a number of people reporting that they dreamt that they asked a question, or that they were just in their mind asking a question. Their partner lying in bed next to them answered it without actually hearing anything. I've heard that quite like at least 6 or 7 times from different people. It was, in fact, it was just in Deborah Harry, Blondie, you know, the singer, her autobiography. Cool. She talks about that in the opening chapter. So it's not that uncommon, you know, that people can have these kind of telepathic communications when they're in these altered states, you know, in a state where they're half awake, half asleep, or that sort of thing. It seems like we're much more receptive in that state. Yeah,
it's going to be really exciting when we can, you know, get more public access to these kind of technologies and things that are being developed, where we can see this all happening with the general population, you know?
Yeah. It's going to be amazing to see where this goes. I mean, really, once we can develop technology to lucid dream on command, this is going to be the beginning of a whole new era for humanity, I think.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm aware we've gone past the time that we said, but we've been enjoying the discussion a lot, I think, and it's been great to see everyone tune in. Is there anything that you'd like to finish off with saying, David?
Well, I hope everybody can come to our retreat in April. I think we're going to be able to go into a lot more depth with these things and be able to really explain the techniques. And I think it'll be a tremendous opportunity for people that really want to learn how to lucid dream. And if you already know, it'll be a great chance to be able to learn some new techniques and improve and become even better.
Yeah, and as we're talking about, there's nothing like doing it in a group of people, and you have this different energy, don't you, in this connection together, and you kind of tune into that like lucid dream void almost. Yeah.
So I'm excited about that, and hope to see everybody there.
Yeah, that would be great. So anyone who doesn't know, you can access the retreat page via my website, which is lanasackwild.com, and then /dreamingwideawake, which is the name of our retreat. It's going to be April 2020, the 10th to the 12th. And that covers International Lucid Dreaming Day. So we're going to be there dreaming, but there's also going to be people all over the world tuning in and having lucid dream experiences. So it's going to be super cool.
It's going to be awesome. We hope to see you there. This has been fun.
Thanks, guys. See you soon.
Thanks. Bye for now.
Bye.
Good dreams.